Hello creative friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anastasia, and in this video I'll be sharing with you projects that I'll be doing on some of my thrifted items. These items that I thrifted have so much potential to be real statement pieces in my home and really make an impact with my decor. However, they just need a tiny bit of tweaking and DIY magic to get them to that point. And that's exactly what we're doing in today's video. And make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, because I post DIYs, thrift flips, and room makeovers, and we have a real good time over here, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. And I know a lot of you watch on your TV, so to subscribe there, use your arrows to scroll over and click my profile picture, and it's as simple as that. Now let's get started. I just thrifted the most unique laundry basket I've ever seen, and it was only $10. I was totally not expecting to come across this beautiful urn-shaped laundry hamper at the thrift store, but when I saw it, I knew it would be perfect in my laundry room. This could not have come at a better time because I'm doing my laundry room makeover right now. This piece will be the perfect statement hamper in there. I never thought I'd say this the phrase statement hamper, but it's going to be. It's a beautiful piece. And I knew, of course, that crusty old yellow laundry bag in it could not stay. So I got right to work when I got home removing that. It was attached with all these metal pins, and it was even stapled at the very bottom. So I know this thing has never been removed and washed, and it was just full of stains. So I just went ahead and threw that away. I was really curious where a unique laundry basket like this came from. So I did a Google image search, and while I couldn't find the exact basket, I did see that Anthropologie has one that is very, very similar in size and in style. So I wonder if maybe this one is a old Anthropologie, like a discontinued item that they used to sell, since this new one is very similar. I'll show you that the main differences between this and the Anthro one that's currently being sold is that the design here is not on the Anthropologie one. The rest of the design everywhere else is the same, from this woven scallop at the top to this tight weave right here and the scallops at the bottom. The handles, everything's the same except for this one just breaks away into these more loose patterns here in the center. And the one at Anthropologie is $288. This being only $10, I basically got a $300 laundry basket for $10. I will say that some of the cane is broken in places. Of course, it's not perfect. It's probably pretty old. That doesn't necessarily bother me. It's still got a lot of unique characteristics that I love, and I'm so excited to do a little DIY on this. So the first thing I did after removing the laundry basket was I knew I wanted to give this a really good clean. You can actually clean baskets with soap and water if you're careful. With this particular one, the bottom of it is made of particle board, which will swell and absolutely get ruined if it gets wet. So I knew I had to be extra careful with this. I took it outside and I wet it down, just the parts that could get wet. So I avoided getting it on that particle board. I used some regular dish soap and an old clean paintbrush, and I just kind of scrubbed it gently with that paintbrush, getting the soap in there, washing every part that I could, and then I rinsed off all the soap and I left it outside on a sunny, breezy day to make sure it dried out really nicely, and it did. For the bottom part that I couldn't get wet, I just used a damp wash rag on the outside just to wipe away any debris on that part. I do want to do a little DIY on this just to change the tone of the wicker. I don't really have a lot of baskets in this color, and I tend to like more darker, warmer brown tones on my baskets. So let's jump right into that. Now, I don't want to give too much away about my laundry room makeover, but I will say that the lower half of the wall is going to be a darker color. I don't want to make this basket so dark that it just blends in and you can't see it at all. I think I'm aiming for more of a medium brown tone. We're going to start off there because we can always go darker if we want to. I've gone ahead and tested out a part on the bottom. I think I like this color that it's turning out to be. We're gonna go with that. To achieve that look, I've mixed brown oxide and nutmeg brown, 1 tablespoon of each, with equal parts water, and then I added in a tiny bit more of the brown oxide just to darken it a bit more. And then that creates a paint wash. So it's like a watered down paint that is pretty transparent. When you put it on here, it's not just going to be a solid color. It's kind of just going to stain it like a wood stain would. This is a little hard. I'm not left-handed. I don't know why I'm doing it on that side. Let's do it on this side. That's better. I think it's important that on a project like this, you start off a little bit on the safer side, I guess, like a little bit lighter than you think you want, because you can always build on it. And I think we're going to end up building on this a little bit and maybe adding some dimension with a darker paint wash in some places. I like just starting off a little bit lighter than I'd like to go. And then once it dries, you can see how it looks and where you want to go from there. Okay, the bottom part is done. Look at that difference. We've definitely gone quite a bit darker, but it's not super, super dark, but it's definitely a huge difference from where it was. This is after one coat of that paint wash, and a lot of it has soaked in, and it also dried a bit lighter than it looked when it was wet. So I do want to go in and put another coat on there just to darken it up a bit, and I may do a little more paint than water this time so that I can get even more color on there and it doesn't just all soak in. It's the next day now, and this has dried overnight. I did about 3, close to 4 full coats of that paint wash on this yesterday, and I think it dried perfectly. I love the color that it is now because it's got this warmth to it, and I love for my baskets to have a warmer undertone, and I think it'll be perfect underneath the darker brown layer that I'm going to put over it. So for this next layer, I am making another paint wash out of this pretty dark brown color. This is raw umber. I mixed in just a tiny bit of this other dark warm brown coffee bean, and I mix that up till it's pretty watered down, like it's going to be very translucent now. So I want this to add just a bit of darkness. I want this to add just a little bit of darkness and depth over the piece without turning the whole thing dark brown. Let's go ahead and start that. I want to go over this with a very, very light hand, so I'm kind of wiping off a lot of that excess with my sponge, and this is very watered down because I want to be able to build it up in layers. I find that layers are really the key to most DIY projects that involve like painting something or creating a faux finish on something, because you don't want to do too much at the start to where it's kind of irreversible. You've gone too far, you've gone too dark. Building it up in layers really allows you to control how much of each color you are getting in the final product. As you're layering, you can even get a little more heavy-handed in some areas and stay with a lighter hand in other areas, because baskets usually have a lot of tonal dimension. They're usually not just one solid color. So I feel like you can really get away with some unevenness in the color too because of that. It's just going to really add to that dimension. Well, this is the finished color. I'm gonna stop here with the layers. I did about 2 layers of the darker brown on top. I'm really happy with the color we're at now. I think it's not too dark and it's not too light. It's kind of a good warm medium brown. As an optional step, you can do a matte clear top coat to protect the new finish. If you started off with a very porous basket and your paint's soaked right in, top coat is optional. But if you feel like your paint wash is sitting on the surface, a top coat will help protect it from scratches. I can't wait for you to see this styled in my upcoming laundry room makeover. Let me know what color laundry bag you think would look best. Should I go classic white or maybe a sandy beige or something more fun? Let me know. I thrifted this large and very beautiful lamp. This is a 90s terracotta lamp and it's got some beautiful texture on it. I found one of these online for sale on Etsy, just one of them with no lampshade for $285. Y'all will not guess how much I got this one for. $10. Round of applause for that. What a steal. So of course my journey began of finding a lampshade for this beautiful lamp. And as is the problem with all of my thrifted lamps, I don't have shades for them that fit, and shades can be expensive. So I tend to have a lot of lamps that I can't use. And I haven't been able to use this one in months since I bought it because I've not had a shade for it. And I didn't come across one at the thrift store. And of course, a shade for a lamp this big can run $70 to $90, not even exaggerating, online for a brand new one. So I've just been holding out to find that right shade at the right price. And after months of no luck, I logged into Facebook Marketplace and searched big Empire lampshade. Not even kidding you, it had just been listed. Found the perfect lampshade for $5. Here it is. Look at that. I cannot believe it. Literally perfect timing. It was meant for me. So I will say this shade could have been an inch or two wider, but I'm okay with that. I can live with that for this only being $5. So I don't know if you can tell from here, but you can actually see the harp a little bit too much. That basically just means that this lampshade is not tall enough for this harp. So I ordered a harp that's 1 inch shorter so that this will sit at the right height for this lampshade. And these are not expensive at all. You can just get these on Amazon. Really, a lot of places online have them. The hardware stores will have them too. And that's a good way to make a lampshade fit your lamp if you're having troubles with the height not being quite right. Real quick, in case somebody hasn't done this before, to replace a lamp harp, you just pinch and take that off. And if all you're trying to do is replace it with a lamp harp that gets you the right height that you need, you can just slip your new harp onto the existing saddle. But if for whatever reason you want to change out this saddle, in my case I do because mine's bent, you will have to take off the socket and kind of take off the wires, then remove the saddle and rewire the lamp. So that's a lot more involved. I'm not going to show it, but I will link a video that shows you how to do that. So, let me run you through my design plan for this lamp and this lampshade. This color is more of like a peachy terracotta color. It doesn't go with my decor, so I will be painting this, but I had a vision for this lampshade to be really fun and patterned. I picked out this fabric from Spoonflower. Look at that. Isn't that so pretty? When I wrap the lampshade in this fabric, then I will pick a corresponding color to paint the base of the lamp. So let's do the lampshade first. Okay, first we make a template. So I've got my gigantic sheet of packing paper here, and you can use whatever you have. You can even use some scrap fabric if you have a piece big enough to make your template on, or an old bed sheet, whatever you have really. So just gonna trace this out. If you're working with an Empire shade like this, what I like to do to trace it is to start at this seam and use that as your guide, because you're gonna end up with a cut that's like a U shape. And so you kind of start at the seam and then mark where that seam is on your paper and roll it as you trace, trace, and then you're gonna get to the seam. The seam's gonna hit the table again at this side. And then that's where you stop. So you don't take it all the way in a full circle. You just go from where the seam hits to that side, where the seam hits on that side. All right, look at that. I've made my paper template. This is a good template that we're gonna go off of for the fabric cutting. So now I've got to figure out what parts of this pattern I want. So I'm gonna place my template over my favorite part of the fabric. I'm just gonna use some painter's tape to tape this to the fabric since my paper wants to bend. That's just gonna hold it in place for now. And then I'm gonna take my fabric marker and draw a line onto the fabric, tracing my template. And I'm just gonna leave like a 1 inch clearance on all sides around it, just so I have a little extra fabric to work with. All right, got my finished piece. Looks perfect. Moment of truth. It's always so scary, even though I know I measured. Oh, thank goodness. Yes, that is so beautiful. It's gonna be so pretty. To make a clean looking seam, I folded over about 1/2 inch of the fabric and ironed it. This is optional because we'll also be gluing this piece down, but I just wanted a nice crisp line. I took the fabric outside to use this Gorilla Spray adhesive to coat the backside of the fabric. It's best to let this get tacky for 1 to 3 minutes before you apply it to the shade. Now I'm back inside and I folded over that edge that I ironed. And I'm very carefully placing the shade on the fabric in the correct spot and rolling it until it's completely covered. The glue does have a few minutes of working time, so I'm just going around and pulling on the fabric at the top and bottom to make sure there's no wrinkles or bubbles and that the fabric is pulled nice and taut all the way around the shade. I'm trimming off some of the excess fabric here because I only need enough to wrap around the bottom lip and top lip of the shade. I'm spraying a tiny bit more glue on and wrapping the fabric around the lip and pinching it so it holds on. This was honestly the most fun part of this shade to me. And I did the same with the top of the shade, and I just cut a little slit in the fabric to fold around the metal frame. To glue that seam down really close to the edge, I'm using some E6000 adhesive. To prepare the base for paint, I'm giving it a light scuff sand to just roughen up the surface a bit. Then I'm priming it with this Rust-Oleum Universal Bonding Primer, which will make sure that any paint I use will stick. Now let's paint the lamp base. Now, because the shade is really the star of the show here, it's moody, it's dark, it's got that pattern. I really want to keep the lamp base on the simpler side, especially since we already have a lot of texture going on with it. You can see that after the primer, there's a lot of variation in the color, which I like. That's why I did a light coat of primer, because now we have a little bit of variation between the primer and the original color of the lamp. I want to keep playing off of that variation by doing a paint washing technique, which is very similar to what we did on the laundry basket. So for this, I'm going to be using two different colors. I've mixed up a paint wash of a darker beige and an off-white. And I overall want the base to be the darker beige primarily, but I've got the off-white just in case I go a little too dark or too heavy in some areas. I can go back over it with the light wash and just kind of work with it until it looks the way I like. For the dark beige paint, I don't know the name of it. It was a custom color that I got from the mist tinted section at the hardware store, but the off-white that I did is a mixture of taupe of the morning and white duck. So to get kind of a varying dimension of the color, I am doing the X pattern with my brush. That's going to keep it a little bit lighter in some areas. It's not necessarily going to get in all of the grooves, which is what I'm going for because I want there to be a slight variation in color. Okay, so this is the first coat of that dry, and I love that it kind of is giving this lime washed effect with a variation, and I just love that. So the only thing that I'm not liking is that this color dried very gray, and I'm gonna put this up here to show you that the gray just doesn't go with the shade. This shade needs a lot warmer of a tone. It needs more of a beige than a gray. So I'm gonna do another coat with a different paint mix. I didn't use any of that lighter off-white paint mix on the first coat, so I used that and I added in some, this is a sample of Dead Salmon by Farrow and Ball in the, color match to Valspar, and I just mixed that in. So now I have this kind of like pinkish sandy beige paint wash. What I love so much about projects like these is that you literally can't mess up. I mean, you just keep adding layers until you're happy with how it looks. And it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. There have been so many projects where I've not liked the color that I originally decided and I changed it. And I think with anything involving art, there's always going to be layers and layers and layers of different colors underneath the final layer of colors. So that goes with like even professional artists who do these detailed paintings. There's all these under layers beneath, and that just adds to the overall depth and dimension that the final product will have. So don't be super concerned if you don't get the color right on the first layer. Now that I'm happy with the color, I'm doing a clear coat of this matte clear. If you want a glossy finish, I really like this one. What a fun project this was, and the shade really exceeded my expectations. I will definitely be wrapping more of my shades. I hope you guys enjoyed today's projects. Let me know which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.